Support for this podcast comes from the law firm of Davis Malm. Whether you're a developer, property owner, manager, or commercial tenant, their real estate attorneys know the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com. Support for this podcast comes from Boston University's Questrom School of Business, presenting the Is Business Broken podcast, featuring conversations about the role of business, stakeholder relations, and government at bu.edu/Questrom or wherever podcasts are available.
WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Common. Data reporter for the Boston Globe's Great Divide, Chris Huffaker. Welcome back to The Common.
Thanks for having me, Daryl. Happy to be here.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, Chris, last time you were here, we discussed efforts to remove books from school classrooms and libraries in Massachusetts school districts. And now we got you back here again to talk about another education story, and this time it centers around school safety. Now, earlier this month, 4 members of the Brockton School Committee called on the governor to bring in the National Guard to calm campus violence amid understaffing at Brockton High School. I want to get into that, Chris, because that seems pretty extreme, but I want you to set us up by taking us into Brockton High School. Tell us about the school, the students, the staff, etc.
Yeah, so Brockton High School is the largest high school in the state. It's over 3,500 students, and it is a school that serves mostly students of color. It's 80% Black and Latino students, mostly high-need students, low-income students. And then the staff population, like the rest of the state, including in most diverse school districts, the staff is much whiter than the student population.
And tell me, how does the school perform compared to other schools in the state?
Right. So just briefly, I would say the way the state measures performance, things like test scores and chronic absenteeism and graduation, these things are to a big degree, measures of the resources the kids are coming in with. And Brockton is a school district where the kids are coming in with not as many resources in terms of wealth and parental education levels. Mm-hmm. So I would say take it with a grain of salt, understanding that. What the state would say is the district is not one that is requiring state assistance or intervention, which is the really low performing schools. They say we need to step in, but they do classify them as making limited progress towards their targets. On those things like high school completion rates or achievement in math and English on the MCAS, that sort of measure that they use.
Understood. Now, let's get into what the situation is right now at Brockton High School. Talk to me about what students and staff are dealing with on the day-to-day.
Yeah, so what we're hearing from students and staff, particularly in recent weeks, but it seems like this has been escalating throughout the year, is in the wake of budget cuts that resulted in a big cut to staffing, the school is just really understaffed, under-resourced. And in that sort of vacuum, students and staff are both saying what they've seen is lots of fights, lots of drug use, or at least vaping in bathrooms. Staff have alleged verbal harassment. And, one staff member was even injured. He broke his arm trying to break up a fight. And the students we talked to also said, even worse maybe than the fights is every time there's a fight, everyone is running to it to film it with their cell phones to post on social media. So the highest risk might just be getting caught in that, sort of stampede.
So now that brings us to the 4 members of the Brockton School Committee calling on the governor to bring in the National Guard. Tell me more about that request and what exactly they're asking for.
Yeah, so this is half of the school committee. About a week and a half ago now, they made this request. What they've said basically is we just need more adults at the school. We're not looking for uniformed soldiers wielding, heavy guns, but we need adults. we don't have money to hire adults. The National Guard has adults. The governor could just send them in. That's kind of their capsule pitch of why they think this is a good idea. So, we don't have any other options to get some more grown-ups into the building.
Really? Can they get community members involved? Why does it have to be the National Guard?
I think what you're saying is what a lot of folks in Brockton and outside of Brockton have been saying over the last week plus. And that includes, the mayor who sits on the school committee and the other 3 school committee members. It seems to include the governor who, has said the state's going to fund a safety audit for the school, but she's not said we're sending in the National Guard. There doesn't seem to be any interest in that. And it includes community members, advocates, students, parents who we've talked to, who all seem to agree, there's a problem at Brockton High School, but it's not a problem that the military could fix.
Have they tried anything else?
Yeah, they've tried some things, and some things they've just recently set in place. And so one of the responses from, the mayor is, hey, we just did this. Give us time to see if it works before we jump to this sort of action. But they've put in place a new cell phone policy at the high school, which requires students to secure their cell phones in what are called yonder pouches. This is from a company that you need a special device to unlock these pouches. So that's supposed to get under control to some degree. The urge to film and spread fights when they happen. They have said they're hiring more safety specialists. They have a new principal just hired recently who came in, I think, last month, former Boston Public Schools administrator. And, a lot of folks in the district are saying, this guy seems great. He's, charismatic and students seem to listen to him. Why don't we give him a chance to turn things around before we jump to some, really extreme solution? And then on the other hand, there are clearly conversations going on in Brockton, on the school committee with community members. The mayor's actually been talking to, the lieutenant governor and a congressperson, all these different people about what other options are there for either getting funds to hire people or getting volunteers into the schools. Can they have some sort of parent, volunteer mentor program, get people just to walk the halls and be there as support and maybe role models and, just extra adults on the grounds.
Got it. Chris, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, I want to know more about the community's response to this.
Absolutely.
So we'll be right back.
Politics has never been stranger or more online, which is why the politics team at Wired is making a new show, Wired Politics Lab. It's all about how to navigate the endless stream of news and information and what to look out for. Each week on the show, we'll dig into far-right platforms, AI chatbots, influencer campaigns, and so much more. Wired Politics Lab launches Thursday, April 11th. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back with data reporter for the Boston Globe's Great Divide, Chris Huffaker. So, Chris, we're discussing the request from 4 Brockton School Committee members to bring in the National Guard to Brockton High School to address instability within the school. What have you heard from parents, teachers, students?
Yeah, so we've spoken to a bunch of people directly, in or connected to Brockton High School, and most folks we've spoken to taking the view something needs to change here, but the National Guard is not it. I will say we talked to a couple of parents last week who said, "Oh, maybe this is the answer," and kind of endorsed the school committee members' view that they don't need to be uniformed soldiers, I guess. But most, the other parents we've talked to, all the students we've talked to, have more been, this is a little too dramatic, or this could even be, counterproductive. The presence of the National Guard, that's going to intimidate kids. It's going to drive them, out of school. It could increase dropout rates or, make things worse.
And you mentioned Governor Healey is not too keen on the idea either. Can you talk more about the state response?
Yeah, so the state has been pretty involved in Brockton for much of the last year already for a related but not directly connected financial problem that the state has been helping them dig into and get a handle on. And what the state has now said is that they're going to also fund a safety audit, which would take a look at the school, figure out what protocols could change, what procedures, what infrastructure could change to ensure a safe learning environment for students. The state also had Boston Public Schools do a safety audit as part of their systemic improvement plan when they hammered out a deal to avoid a state takeover. And that, if I recall correctly, that was done within 6 months of that deal being struck. And I imagine it could be done much faster in Brockton, which has, especially if it's just one high school rather than a district of over 100 schools.
Got it. Well, Chris, what are you watching out for in the future?
Yeah, so there's those discussions of bringing in parents or community volunteers in some sort of formal capacity, which I think are super interesting. Worth keeping an eye on the cell phone policy and how that works, if that has an effect. It's a very new policy. The results of that safety audit, whether the district can scrounge up any additional money to hire people. The school committee is going to continue discussing potential solutions. We're now entering budget season for next year, and they've got to be talking about what are we going to do next year so we don't have a repeat of this. So there's definitely a ton of factors in play for how things might turn out.
Got it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your reporting on this story. We really appreciate you covering it and taking the time to come talk to us here at The Common.
Thank you, Daryl. Hope for everyone's sake in Brockton that there stops being so much to cover there soon.
And also, if folks want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
You can reach me at huffaker@globe.com. That's Huffaker. Or just Google Christopher Huffaker and you'll find me.
Got it. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. If you want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Instagram at WBUR The Common, or send us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and I will talk to you tomorrow.